This universe is full of mysteries. When an individual realizes there are no coincidences, all the world's myths and legends, the things left behind and forgotten, begin to call out to them. And the one who was called answered. This isn't an end, but a new beginning. In a house on the outskirts of the city, just like any other day, Shia wakes up exhausted, calling out for her older brother, the one who's always tinkering away in the basement. Seeing her brother emerge from the basement, Sia curiously asks, "Did you sleep down there again?" Facing her quiet, brother Shia looks disgusted by the smell of oil on him. Her brother is Guo, who just turned 18. Their house is in the suburbs of a new city, far away from everything. There are hardly any bus routes here, so they have to wait over 30 minutes to get to school every day. Guo is the one who takes his sister to her all-girls school. After the siblings say their goodbyes, it takes Guo another 20 minutes to get to his own school. Since his sister isn't on the back anymore, he decides to go at breakneck speed. The streets are bustling with students. On a street corner, two schoolgirls leaving a shop suddenly feel something zip past them. Our protagonist is currently tearing up the streets on his bicycle. This insane burst of speed from Guo leaves the two girls completely stunned. It should take 20 minutes from his sister's school to his, but at his insane pace, he gets there in just 5. He rode so hard, the friction turned his wheels red hot. To handle this speed, Guo has spent a long time modifying his bike. His bike looks so crappy that no one would bother stealing it, so Guo just leaves it anywhere. As soon as he reaches the school gate, Guo quickly puts on his headphones and slowly walks to class. Guo's school is Bin High, a notoriously trashy place. It's considered the #1 delinquent school in the area. It's where society's rejects end up a literal dumpster. You can feel the rotten atmosphere right from the gate. The moment Guo steps inside, his height immediately draws the attention of the female students. 2 girls right in front of him start catcalling like a couple of thugs. A moment later, Guo runs into another problem. He accidentally bumps into an aggressive-looking student. Without even figuring out what happened, the guy starts slapping our MC repeatedly. Despite being hit, Guo doesn't react to the punk. This is pretty much a daily occurrence at this school. He avoids one disaster just to run into another. Some gangster-looking dude comes up and orders Guo to see him at noon. This is Teacher Sok. He's a discharged ex-Special Forces officer and one of the few teachers who can actually control the students here. His specialty is jumping into student brawls, completely ignoring his position as a teacher. His nicknames are Mad Dog and Broomstick. Guo knows it's best not to get involved with guys like him, so he just ignores the guy. After that, Guo heads to class 2 to 5. The classroom is incredibly noisy. The moment Guo steps inside, all eyes immediately lock onto him. A second later, the class falls dead, silent. A gloomy atmosphere fills the room. For Guo, this is just business as usual. A female student sits in front of Guo. Just as he takes his seat, the teacher walks in. During class, instead of taking out his books, he pulls out a pair of dumbbells he prepared and slumps over his desk. Few people know that Guo has vivid dreams that cause him excruciating pain, as if his flesh is being torn apart. Our MC is suffering from a strange unknown illness. The problem is, he never knows when it will strike. Guo calls this painful process molting because it's similar to how insects shed their skin. The illness causes his muscles to contract violently, his blackened fingernails digging horrifically into his own skin. In an instant, the dumbbell in his hand is crushed by an incredible force, like a meat bun. As the attack hits, another student approaches Guo's desk. This person acts friendly and asks how he's doing. This is Do-It. He's a timid and honest guy. He's one of the few who actually gets along with the class. As Do-It sits down next to Guo, he suddenly notices the book on Guo's desk. Seeing that Guo hasn't even touched a single page of the book but is still ranked first, Do-It feels like life is so unfair. Some people don't read a single word and still get first place, like the guy sitting right in front of him. Just as they're talking, a female student approaches them. This is Yuna, the class president of class 2 to 5. She walks up and asks Guo, "Are you free next Monday night?" Hearing that, Ju-It's eyes sparkled as he asked Yuna if she was planning on asking her friend out. Flustered by It's teasing, Yuna furiously denied it. Meanwhile, Gu couldn't care less about their little squabble. His eyes were glued to the clock. It was already 5:30, almost time to meet his sister. Gu immediately grabbed his bag to leave, but just as he was heading out, Yuna desperately asked for his help with the event. But Gu coldly shot her down. Without waiting for another word, he quickly started to walk away. Seeing him about to leave, Yuna was at a loss, mustering all her courage. Yuna rushed forward and grabbed the hem of Gu's shirt. This whole situation was really starting to annoy him. Seeing the desperate look on her face, Gu glanced around the classroom. The second he saw his classmates look over and immediately turn away, Gu understood why the class president was so anxious. With no other choice, he had to agree. Now that she'd gotten what she wanted, Yuna's face lit up with a strange excitement. Meanwhile, in the teacher's office, the thuggish teacher was fuming at the very mention of Gu's name. Mr. Kim, sitting next to him, asked what was wrong. Mr. Sok chimed in saying, "It's one thing for Gu to mess with other students, but no one can do a damn thing to him because he never leaves any evidence." Mr. Kim was stunned. It seemed Mr. Sokji knew Gu pretty well, understanding that the kid was an incredible fighter. As Gu was leaving the school gate, his illness flared up again, making his head feel like it was on fire. Bits of his fingernails were flaking off, and his scalp was peeling so badly his hair was falling out in clumps. His nails were practically gone, exposing the raw flesh underneath. But to him, this was no big deal. By morning, they'd be perfectly fine again. The intense pain had just become a familiar numbness to him. He'd gotten so used to it, it was just part of his daily routine. Just as he was about to pop in his earbuds, a gang showed up out of nowhere. The thugs told Gu their boss wanted to see him. Back in the office, Mr. Sok continued that he'd never actually seen Gu fight. He suspected someone was covering for him ever since he transferred. The kid hadn't assaulted anyone, and there were no official complaints against him. Hearing this, Mr. Kim wondered, could it be he really hadn't caused any trouble? While the teachers were pondering this, Gu was busy throwing punches. In a flash, Gu had already taken down every single one of those arrogant thugs. The leader, beaten to a pulp by Gu, was now desperately begging for his life. It was only now that he realized Gu was nowhere near as harmless as he seemed. Elsewhere, Sie was waiting for her brother to pick her up. Suddenly, a figure appeared behind her. It was her best friend, Gu Hee. Gu Hee came over to check on her, and Saya mentioned her brother was picking her up at 6. At this, Gu Hee got super excited. But a second later she asked suspiciously, "Wait, Gu's a senior. Does the school even let them leave this early?" Reluctantly, Saya had to admit her brother was attending BUSSIN High. The moment Gu Hee heard this, she was completely shocked. From what she knew, Gu was a gifted student with a talent for research. So why the hell was he at a B-rank school like that? Saya explained. It was because of an incident. Even though the incident wasn't his fault, Gu still blames himself for it. Not even his own sister, Sei, can figure out what's going on in his head. The two girls were chatting away, happily waiting for Gu to arrive. Meanwhile, Gu was still busy dealing with those punks. The boss was beaten black and blue, able to do nothing but beg for mercy. He never imagined it would end up like this. Let's rewind a bit. The thugs arrogantly ordered Gu to go see their boss. They warned him not to even think about running away. Glancing at the time, Gu saw it was already 5:40. It was almost time to pick up his sister. With no other choice, Gu followed them to meet this so-called boss. The second he saw him, the leader ordered Gu to kneel. Apparently Gu was the one who had hurt Seo Habong, one of his underlings, so now he was out for revenge. Realizing these guys were just looking for a fight, Gu wasn't scared at all. In fact, he just smirked. In that instant, it was like a soundtrack started playing in slow motion just for him. To Gu, everything in the world began to move in super slow-mo. And this was the signal for him to speed up. At that moment, Gu felt an intense heat radiating from deep inside him. His eyes flashed with a dangerous light. The second the gang moved in to jump him, Gu seized his chance. He unleashed the incredible speed hidden within his body. Instantly, a suffocating pressure filled the air around them. One of the gangsters steps forward to attack Gu, but with just 2 fingers, he flicks away the incoming club. Right after channeling power to his fingertips, blood instantly bursts from his fingernails. This leaves Gu momentarily vulnerable. Then some fearless punk tries to launch a sneak attack. The moment the club hits his leg, it instantly warps out of shape. A second later, the area in front of the attacker bizarrely explodes. Everything up until now was just an appetizer from Gu. The real bloodbath starts now. The moment he points his index finger at the guy in front of him, the man's throat is instantly crushed. Next, Gu moves with godlike speed towards another goon. This is the leader, who was acting all high and mighty earlier. He now realizes this student is not to be trifled with. Deciding the best defense is a good offense, he strikes before Gu can even react. But Gu blocks the attack with ease. Now only this one clueless fool is left standing. One guy's legs are now useless, and another's throat is completely crushed. As for the leader, Gu promises to send him straight to the emergency room. With that, he mercilessly crushes the man's hand like a tomato. Meanwhile, the big boss is clueless, calmly smoking a cigarette while watching the sunset. He has no idea he's staring death in the face, just as his attention turns to the scene with his underlings and Gu. The big boss is instantly horrified, speechless. The cigarette drops from his mouth. In the blink of an eye, Gu has taken care of every single thug. Right now, he's like the Grim Reaper walking among mortals. The moment the boss's cigarette hits the ground, Gu appears right in front of him. Our hero corners the boss before he can react, touching a finger to his forehead. In an instant, the power from his index finger stuns the boss. The moment the boss opens his mouth, a slap lands squarely on his face, so powerful it knocks out his front tooth. Still not satisfied, Gu lands a heavy punch to his head. The boss feels his jaw rattling violently. His eyes glaze over as a terrible pain shoots up from the left side of his throat. Before he can even register the pain, another powerful blow slams into his chest. In an instant, the rest of the boss's teeth are knocked clean out. Every part of his body that Gu touched is now completely useless. Out of options, the boss musters all his strength to lunge for a knife he'd prepared. The moment his hand touches the knife, Gu stomps on it with his foot. In an instant, his shoe is stained bright red with blood. Right now, the boss can only feel two things: overwhelming pain and absolute terror. Gu faces the boss and asks who he is. The man is too broken to even speak. The time is 5:43 p.m. It took our hero 3 minutes to take down these idiots. Realizing time is short, Gu asks to borrow the boss's phone. After tapping away on the phone for a moment, he gets all of the man's information and contacts. Seeing the boss, still trying to reach for the knife, Gu decides to be a good guy and help him out. He picks up the knife, inspecting it, and testing its sharpness. Then, with a threatening glare, he wordlessly asks, "You planning on telling anyone what happened today?" At this point, the boss is so scared he literally pisses himself. He desperately promises he won't say a single word. Hearing this promise, Gu immediately gives him a gift right across the scalp. In a flash, all the hair on the boss's head is sliced clean off. He's now just a pathetic bald mess. Consider it a gift for his cooperation. Before leaving, Gu advises the gangsters to turn over a new leaf. With that, he slips into an alley. After making sure no one's watching, Gu's strong facade crumbles, looking like he's about to collapse. A moment later, he coughs up blood. This is the price for using his power. If he'd stayed there any longer, he would have been a goner, for sure. After using his powers, Gu's body is in critical condition. His fingernails are shattered, and both of his thumbs are broken. After resetting his joints and setting the bones, Gu can finally move normally again. Being someone obsessed with time, Gu constantly checks his watch. He knows that other senses can be trained, but time, it's impossible to gauge accurately when his body is this unstable. You gotta go for a clean sweep, especially in a fight. The main character needs a formula for maximum efficiency with minimum effort. The guy spent a ton of time studying dynamics, so to him, time is everything. After riding his bike at breakneck speed for a while, as he got close to his sister's school, Gu intentionally slowed down. He was worried that if Sei sat on the back seat right away, she'd get burned from the friction. In just a moment, Gu arrived at the spot where he was meeting his sister. It was exactly 5:58 p.m., with 2 whole minutes to spare, just as Sei walked out. Seeing his sister's friend Gu He next to her, Gu gave a cold, indifferent greeting. After a bit of back and forth, the sharp-eyed Gu He noticed that Gu's bike tires were almost worn out. This made her a little curious. Because Sei-A's family looked really wealthy, yet her brother in front of her was riding a beat-up old bike. It was baffling. Before she could say another word, Gu quickly urged Sei-A to get on the bike. Left with no choice, Gu He had to say goodbye to her friend. Right there, just after Sei-A and her brother left, Gu He's face twisted into a pout. It was because of how coldly Gu had spoken to her. On the way home, Sei-A started talking to her brother. She had just heard from Gu He that Ha Dong had joined YG Entertainment. Hearing this, Gu acted like it was no big surprise. After chatting for a bit, Sei-A casually mentioned that she'd given his phone number to Gu He. At this, our hero's expression turned unusually grim. Seeing her brother go silent, Sei assumed he was sulking. Facing his sister, Gu told her that he was fine, not at all angry, that she gave his number to someone else without asking. That night, after getting home, Gu was working, when he suddenly remembered what Sei-A had told him that afternoon. The girl named Ha Dong that Sei-A mentioned. Gu knew her too. She was the granddaughter of the former CEO of the company his dad worked for. Ever since the 8th grade, Gu's family had been living with the CEO's family. Turns out, after graduating high school, Gu's father joined the company and received a lot of help from the CEO. Back when he was just a rookie employee, CEO Ha was an engineer who loved inventing things. At the time, he chose Gu's father as his assistant and taught him so much, helping the company grow from a small startup to a massive success. It even went public on the stock exchange, and his father's tech development played a crucial role in that. Back then, the CEO's son studied abroad and got an MBA, but when he returned, he wasn't nominated to become the next CEO. Because of that, he really disliked Gu's father, who the CEO valued so much. Thinking of Ha Dong made Gu think of the old CEO. Both he and Sei-A had special memories with the man, and there were painful things about him that Gu knew all too well. Just then, an unknown number called Gu's phone. As soon as he answered, he immediately recognized the familiar voice. The caller was none other than Ha Dong, the very person he was just thinking about. She was calling to invite Gu over to her house this weekend. At first, hearing the offer, our hero wasn't interested. But after learning that Ha Dong's grandfather really wanted to see him, Gu had no choice but to accept the invitation. After hanging up, Gu stared at his phone, lost in thought for a long time. Suddenly, a new text message popped up instantly, grabbing his attention. The message was from someone named Cha Min, who was begging Gu for help. The next morning at school, Yuna came in earlier than usual today. What happened with Gu yesterday was really bothering her. She was wondering what to do next. Suddenly, a classmate walked over and started talking about Cha Min-soo, a smart kid from class 1. From what the classmate said, Yuna learned that Cha Min-soo was found last night after trying to commit suicide by cutting her wrists. She was rushed to the hospital right after. Everyone suspected she did it because she was being bullied, and the ringleader of that bullying was Park Ga-dong. The moment she heard the name Park Ga-dong, Yuna's expression changed. She was one of the troublemakers who were part of an alliance. Her parents were wealthy fund managers, but she got transferred because she was constantly involved in accidents. Last year, her father was arrested for embezzlement, and from that point on, Park Ga-dong was ostracized. The classmate also mentioned that Min-soo's family didn't seem to be well off financially. This afternoon, her mother came to school with the letter Min-soo left behind. The chaotic scene only started to calm down. When the vice principal arrived, there was a rumor going around that Ga-dong's mother was the one behind the bullying. Hearing this, Yuna was completely stunned. After finishing the story about Min-soo, her friend noticed their class was unusually quiet today. As soon as she heard that, Yuna's thoughts immediately went to Gu. She'd always found the classmate sitting behind her incredibly strange. Gu was the only person that both teachers and students avoided, like the plague. The guy never studied, yet his grades were unbelievably perfect. Meanwhile, in the teacher's office, Mr. Sok-ji had just received a text message from Gu about he had something come up and couldn't make their appointment. The moment our protagonist sent that text, Teacher Sok-ji flew into a rage, cursing under his breath. Just then, a figure stepped in from outside. The moment she saw Teacher Sok-ji, she pleaded, "Dad, please help me." This was none other than his precious daughter, Dong-ae. It was Sok-ji's daughter. She'd come to the teacher's office to ask her father for help with Minal. In front of his daughter, Sok-ji motioned for her to explain everything. Seeing this, Dong-ae admitted that she was involved in Minal's situation. Hearing this, Sok-ji fell silent. To think his own daughter was caught up in this mess. At this point, she had no choice but to ask her father for help. And though he was reluctant, Sok-gi agreed to bail his daughter out this one time. The day of Gu's appointment at Ha Dong's house finally arrived. As soon as he rang the doorbell, a voice from inside invited him in. Gu looked around the place, and an indescribable feeling of familiarity washed over him. This place held deep aspirations, immense joy, and a terrifying discomfort, all coexisting strangely. Before him stood the very house his family had once moved into and lived in. Just a few steps further, Gu spotted the dog Jaka, who he'd known since he was a kid. Seeing the healthy dog wagging its tail at him, our hero couldn't help but feel a surge of joy. Just as he was playing with Jaka, a familiar voice cut in. The person saw Gu and snapped, "You're here, so get inside already. Why are you playing with the dog? The old man's waiting for you." This was Che Ha Dong, Director Che's granddaughter, the one he'd spoken to on the phone. Faced with Ha Dong, Gu immediately felt annoyed by her abrasive tone. In his mind, Ha Dong fell into the annoying category, and a major one at that. Meanwhile, Che Muo was in his study, recalling recent events, a weary look on his face. Some time ago, the director had met with his son, Yu Che. When his father pressed him about meeting Byung-ho, Yu Che claimed he hadn't yet, saying he was busy. Then he admitted that the last incident was his mistake. But this job didn't necessarily have to go to Byung-ho. He could handle it himself. Hearing this, Che Muo gave him a probing look and asked, "Did you just say it was a mistake?" He then continued to question how his son Yu Che dared to hire a spy to sabotage his rival. Although Yu Che tried to deny it, as his father Che Muo knew his personality better than anyone. Che Muo then reminded Yu Che that it was Byung-ho who designed the core of that machine, so if he wanted help, he should go find Byung-ho. Hearing this, Yu Che vehemently refused. He declared he would hire a Japanese engineer to fix the machine himself. At this, Che Muo felt helpless at his son's incompetence. He then brought up Ha Dong, Yu Che's daughter. "I heard Ha Dong joining the entertainment company. Was that your decision?" Yu Che vaguely replied that it was what Ha Dong wanted. He then begged his father to help his company this time. Back in the present, Gu was heading to the study to meet Che Muo. The moment he saw him, he bowed politely like a dutiful grandson. A moment later, he apologized to Grandpa Che for not visiting in so long. Seeing Gu immediately reminded Che Muo of his father, so he kindly asked how Gu's father was doing. Gu vaguely answered that he rarely saw his father as he'd been busy with work lately. Seeing this, Grandpa Che changed the subject. He turned and asked about Gu's health. Our protagonist assured him he'd almost fully recovered, and there was nothing to worry about. Looking at Gu's current state, a flicker of sympathy appeared in Che Muo's heart. This child had to live with hellish, flesh-tearing pain. Looking into Gu's eyes, Che Muo knew what he was thinking, so he assured him that his own health was very good. With that said, he decided to get straight to the point. Che Muo told Gu he had a favor to ask. He'd heard Hadong was about to debut at Kwai Ra Entertainment, and he wanted Gu's help with a matter concerning her. Gu immediately understood what Mr. Che was getting at. He wanted him to protect Hadong. This was within his expectations, as he'd already researched the companies connected to Hadong, including the one where her father was a director. This favor from his grandfather wasn't just about simple protection, but faced with the old man's request, Gu was still willing to accept, because he saw Che Muo as his own flesh-and-blood grandfather. This was also a chance to atone for the mistakes he'd made in the past. Seeing Gu agree to his request, Che Muo couldn't stop smiling from ear to ear. During that meeting, he had told Yu Che about the favor he asked of Gu. The moment he heard it, Yu Che became absolutely furious. He couldn't accept Byung-ho's son getting involved with his daughter because of a decade-old feud over a woman. Faced with Yu Che's resentment, Che Muo simply stated that Byung-ho was their savior, and also Yu Jae's savior. Back in the present, Jae Myul is extremely pleased with Gu's performance. He doesn't hesitate to invite the young man to stay and have lunch with him. Elsewhere, a living hell unfolds for another female student at the school. As usual, she's being bullied by Jio Dong. No matter how much the girl begs, Jio Dong just torments her mercilessly. Without a shred of pity, she shoves the girl's head into a toilet, then lands several kicks on her body. She orders the girl to bring her $30 by tomorrow, or else she'll personally take her kidney. And on top of that, she'll bury her little brother alive. Right now, Jio Dong is nothing less than a greedy, blonde-haired demon. She'll do anything to extort money from her bullying targets. Right after she's done, Jio Dong heads back to her lair. There, her demonic cronies see her and immediately start mocking her. Why'd you have to go so hard on her? If you keep this up, she might actually end up kicking the bucket. Faced with their teasing, Jio Dong just grits her teeth and takes it. Suddenly one of them brings up the name Jiang Min. Hearing that, her face twists in fury, warning him not to bark Jiang Min's name in front of her. Through her cronies, Jio Dong learns that teacher Sogi also got involved this time. At this, she officially holds a grudge against Dong A. You used your dad to get involved in this. For now, Jio Dong temporarily ignores her own evil deeds. What she cares about is managing the clients in her system. As long as the money keeps rolling in, Jio Dong doesn't care how many vile, despicable things she has to do. Turns out Jio Dong is working for a school bullying ring. She has to constantly calculate how to drain every last cent from other students' wallets. In return, she receives a huge payment from the clients using the service. But now that teacher Sogi is involved, Jio Dong is worried the police will find out, so she pulls out her phone to contact someone named Samuel. Back at school, Yuna is begging Guo to go talk to the punk who bullies all the seniors. It's because she heard from someone that Guo is surprisingly good at talking to kids. Since it's lunchtime, Guo easily escapes her clutches for the moment. Finding himself dragged into a new problem, Guo isn't exactly thrilled. He had decided to keep a low profile his senior year, but lately, things haven't been going his way. Guo tries to ask if they can just use a phone instead of a proper camera this time. Yuna replies that since their class is in charge of filming, they need a high-quality camera. They need something professional. The class president explains that the kid took the camera and hasn't returned it to the class for 2 years. So Guo's mission is to get the camera back for the class. Yuna suggests they go down to the 8th grade classroom together after school. That kid will be waiting for them. Seeing the look in Yuna's eyes when she talks about him, Guo guesses they have some kind of complicated history. Although Guo could probably hold out for a few more days, he's not very confident about his own health. Even though he tries to cover up his body odor with oil and other chemicals, Guo is still terrified. Because of that monstrous disease, he has completely isolated himself despite once having a curious and proactive personality. Now Guo has to suppress every part of himself because of his illness. Guo has learned to be extremely careful in life, to handle the sudden attacks of pain. Right now he asks Yuna for some information on Kwang Pil, the person they're about to meet. After school, just as planned, Yuna goes to meet Kwang Pil's group to ask for the camera back. But after hearing that she wants the camera, the punk just gives her a smug, mocking look. He says he's not done using it yet. No matter what logical arguments Yuna makes, Kwang Pil just keeps up his cocky attitude. He's basically saying, "What's in my hand is mine." Out of options, Yuna has to compromise. So, how can I borrow the camera? Her words fall right into Kwang Pil's trap. He immediately quotes her a price of 1,001 a day to rent the camera. On top of that, she has to leave her student ID as collateral. Hearing this, Yuna becomes furious, confronting them for running a business with school property. She then threatens that she's going to go snitch to a teacher about this immediately. Her words send Kwang Pil into a rage. He roughly shoves Yuna against the wall. Ignoring her completely, he says in a low, menacing voice, "Back in freshman year, I actually thought of you as a friend. Now you're just a pain in the ass." He then orders his lackeys to lock the warehouse door. Today he's going to be the one to ruin Yuna. For a piece of trash like Kwang Pil, this is nothing new. He doesn't believe for a second that he'll go to jail for this. On the contrary, it's Yuna, whose entire future could be destroyed. In this moment, she finally realizes the true danger she's in. Just as he's about to make his move, something suddenly smacks Kwang Pil in the head, making him see red. He sees it's just a pen, but his head is bleeding profusely. Kwang Pil immediately senses a bizarre demonic power appearing before them out of nowhere. The thugs and Yuna. Guo shows up like a god and even remembers to zip up his fly to look sharp. This grand entrance leaves everyone speechless. Guo declares, "I came here to take out the trash," referring to Guangpu's crew. Just then, one of the underlings recognizes Guo the moment his boss asks who the hell he is. He spills everything he knows. Back at Chungnam High when he was a freshman, rumor had it Guo was the guy who bullied the school's top student. He even assaulted a teacher and got expelled. That's why nobody dares to mess with Guo. You have to understand, Chungnam High is a prestigious school in Gangnam. Now Guangpu starts to wonder if Guo is some kind of big shot. Still, he acts cocky, asking if Guo is here to play hero and save the damsel in distress. If so, he says they should play around first. Just then, Guangpu lunges forward to attack. Guo doesn't even move a muscle. As the punch flies at his face, he easily dodges to the side. Realizing this guy values fists over words, Guo simply continues to evade Guangpu's attacks. Seeing the time is ripe, our hero's senses, sight, hearing, smell, and touch are instantly enhanced. Guangpu wants to take Guo on himself. As he throws a powerful punch, Guo spins out of the way. Next comes a knee strike aimed at his chin. But our hero uses his palm to push it away, pivoting to deflect it. Compared to Guo's previous opponents, Li Guangpu is actually pretty decent. His sequence of movements is smooth and carries some serious power. But when it comes to agility, Guo is on a whole other level. He dodges a punch by pressing his face right up against the incoming elbow. Then he pushes himself back, dodging with silky, smooth precision. Seeing that none of his punches have even touched Guo, Guangpu starts to realize how skilled this guy really is. Knowing the guy in front of him can fight, Guo decides to taunt him, raising a friendly finger to provoke Guangpu. In an instant, Guangpu feels completely disrespected and his face twists with rage. He storms towards Guo, intending to finish him with one blow, but before the punch can even land, he gets countered. Guangpu just took a massive shot to the face from our hero, sending blood flying. Guo keeps provoking him to attack, but by now, Guangpu's vision is starting to blur. Guo's figure becomes a hazy silhouette. Before he can refocus, Guo mercilessly lands several more punches to his face. At this point, Guangpu is practically begging Guo to just let him land one solid hit. But our hero isn't an idiot. Why would he agree to something so ridiculous? In that moment, Guangpu feels like he's about to lose his mind. He's never felt this helpless in a fight before. Guangpu charges forward again, but suddenly he sees Guo's fist move and instinctively covers his face, leaping back. But the next moment is when the real hell begins for Guangpu. The second he sees the cunning smile in Guo's eyes, a chill runs down his spine. In his eyes, Guo suddenly looks monstrously huge. And that marks the end of today's fight. As the crowd watches in horror, Guo casually kicks the guy straight into the air. Guangpu just got a one-way ticket to the moon. As he's about to hit the ground, Guo gets into a fighting stance. In a split second, Guo starts using Guangpu's body as a punching bag, not even giving him a chance to land. He uses his lightning-fast speed to pummel his opponent in midair. The only sound in the room is the relentless thud of fists. Guangpu is now beaten so badly he can't move. Seeing his opponent is still mumbling incoherently, Guo mercilessly smashes his head into the ground. Guangpu has no other choice. He can only agree to return the camera to class 2 to 5. Hearing this, Guo slams his head down again for good measure. Unable to take any more, Guangpu's voice turns pathetic as he begs Guo to spare him. His large body is trembling like a leaf. Facing the swollen-faced loser, Guo pulls out a knife. He holds it right in front of the guy's face and gives him two options, left hand, or left eye and right eye. If he chooses, Guo will cut that part right off. Guangpu finally realizes he's facing a demon straight out of hell. Despair and terror completely overwhelm him, leaving him able to do nothing but beg for mercy. In an instant, the tough gang leader is reduced to an idiot on the floor after Guo slices off his arm. This is his gift to those who don't know pain and don't understand the pain they cause others. With the big boss handled, Gu didn't forget about the remaining small fry. Our hero decided it was time to take out the trash for society. These were the guys who constantly caused trouble and bullied other students at school. Without a word, Gu slammed a fist into the first guy's face. Before the others could react, he cracked each of them on the head with his palm. In just a second, two of them were down for the count. The last guy was so terrified, he literally pissed his pants. Not wanting to get his hands dirty, Gu decided not to hit him again. He then turned to Yuna, giving her a look that said, "You're not planning on spreading rumors, are you?" In that moment, Yuna finally understood why there were never any rumors about Gu. After dealing with the thugs in the warehouse, Gu and Yuna walked out of the school gates together. On the way, she kept stealing curious glances at him. Catching her stare, Gu asked flatly, "What is it now?" Even after witnessing that bloody mess, Yuna didn't seem scared of Gu at all. Facing him, she hinted, "It'd be great if you were willing to help." Later, at a city restaurant, Gu and Yuna sat face to face. Sitting at the table, he recalled what she'd said earlier that afternoon, leaving him a bit speechless. Turns out the help she needed was for him to have dinner with her. At this, Gu could only give a helpless smile. Over on her side, Yuna suddenly spoke up. She admitted that today's incident had given her a completely different impression of Gu. Seeing her slightly uneasy expression, Gu felt a pang of guilt about the whole incident with Li Guangpil. It had shocked her so much that she was still trembling. What Gu did back in that warehouse, even a brave adult would find it hard to look the other way. That was the kind of stuff you only see in violent movies. Yet a high school girl had just witnessed it firsthand. Just then, Gu suddenly placed his hand on Yuna's shoulder and began to rub it. As she tensed up, our hero assured her he wasn't going to try anything funny. And then, Yuna felt a warmth on the back of her neck. An energy spread from her neck to her face, feeling like a powerful mint oil. Yuna's body, which felt tense just moments before now, felt much more relaxed. Still, she couldn't bring herself to thank Gu. So instead, Yuna decided to treat him to dinner as her way of showing gratitude. Forgetting everything that happened, they started chatting like a normal couple. Meanwhile, at a university, a female professor was in the middle of a lecture. The topic was philosophy, and its dry concepts were making the college students a bit drowsy. One sleepy student immediately caught the professor's attention. That teacher was none other than Gu's mother, Professor Dong-suk. She immediately called on the student to stand and answer a question. She presented a hypothetical situation and demanded he build a case for it. Since he wasn't paying attention, the answer he gave was immediately met with a huge roar of laughter from his classmates. Professor Dong-suk had zero tolerance for such irresponsible students, so in front of everyone, she angrily kicked the student out of her class. That was the price for disrespecting the lecturer. A little later, when the lunch break started, Professor Dong-suk used the time to call her son Gu and check in. When it came to her son, she always carried a sense of guilt. They chatted pleasantly for a moment, but as soon as Gu mentioned his father, Professor Dong-suk fell silent. She sternly told him to never bring that up again. With no other option, Gu hung up the phone, disappointed. Beside him, Se-a mentioned that Ha-dong wanted them to move into his house starting next week. Gu already knew this. It was Mr. Che's idea after all. Seeing her brother acting so calm about the whole thing, Se-a asked with concern if he was really okay with it. She knew that besides their grandfather, no one in that household truly treated them well. On top of that, she was incredibly worried about her brother's health. Understanding his sister's worries, Gu reluctantly told her that he was feeling much better than before. For Gu, the most relaxing times were when he was with his little sister. He quickly changed the subject, asking about Se-a's studies and exams. Since she was a kid, she'd never been as academically gifted as her father and older brother. Those two were intellectual monsters, and even their mother was a demon professor. She was a firm believer in a modern liberal art style of education. In a house full of geniuses, Se-a was already exhausted and felt hopeless about the world. Back at BUSSIN High, a teacher sat in the faculty office yawning non-stop. This was Ho Yun, the senior year homeroom teacher. For the past 3 days, she had been conducting student interviews but was getting absolutely nowhere. Lately, just mentioning she was the senior year homeroom teacher changed how everyone acted around her. Even the school's worst troublemakers would bow respectfully when they saw her. Her senior class was actually pretty normal compared to the overall student body at Duo High. So, the strange phenomena happening lately made Ho Yoon suspect a connection to Jeo Hoon. At this thought, a spark of hope ignited within her. She'd found a lead to the truth. Meanwhile, our protagonist was just chilling on the rooftop, completely unaware of how he'd secretly upended the social hierarchy at Busan School. All Gu cared about was that he hadn't suffered an attack in days. The thought of facing those troublemakers at school made Gu want to just drop out, but he was afraid his mom wouldn't approve. At the mention of his mother, a pang of self-pity washed over him. Whenever he had his attacks, she was never there to comfort him. She even silently went along with never taking him to the hospital. There was a period when both of Gu's parents were away from home. Back then, when an attack hit, it was his grandfather who rushed him to the hospital. That was also the first time Gu saw his father and grandfather in a massive fight. From what the doctor said, Gu learned that his illness was incurable. It was a strange disease and he had a year to live at most. On top of that, the damn doctors found a remarkable biological sample on Gu and insisted on admitting him, but his parents vehemently refused. Everything at the hospital back then was pure chaos. Since that day, Mr. Chomwell hadn't spoken to Gu's parents for a long time. As Gu was lost in these painful memories, a familiar face appeared right in front of him. Seeing Gu's eyes welling up, Yuna asked him what was wrong. With no way out, Gu just claimed he was so sleepy, his eyes were watering. Yuna then got to the point she wanted Gu to spend some time with her today, but he seemed to be turning her down. Elsewhere, Mr. So was questioning the students involved in Cha Manel's case. Faced with his questions, Dong Cho played dumb, insisting she knew nothing. Seeing the girl wouldn't tell the truth, Mr. Seo had to soften his approach. He urged her to share what she knew, promising he would keep it a secret. But Dong Cho still refused to name the real ringleader. Meanwhile, Park Go-dong heard the news and was absolutely furious. She learned from her cronies that Mr. Seo had gotten involved and was interviewing everyone connected to the incident. Right now, Park Go-dong needed to know what Dong Cho had just told Mr. Seo. Both the principal and vice principal were in on their operation. Mr. Seo was the only exception. He pays very close attention to anything involving drugs, making him a major threat. So Park Go-dong immediately called an acquaintance. When she asked about Cha Manel, she found out her mother was causing a scene at the police station. Park Go-dong guessed that Cha Manel must be hiding somewhere, refusing to show her face. Next, she asked her crew about the other guy and learned he'd also been absent since yesterday. For now, her group had no choice but to figure things out on their own. Back at Gu's house, he was hit by a wave of excruciating pain. This time, the agony was more terrifying than ever. Realizing his metamorphosis might be starting, Gu headed to the basement with the special equipment. As soon as he lay down and hit the switch, the lid sealed shut. Then the chamber began to rotate around Gu's body. In an instant, he was like a cocoon, as a powder-like substance sprayed inside. Gu immediately felt a transformation starting from deep within his body. His body was changing violently, but he could only writhe against the strong black tendrils binding him. Our hero thrashed his head and let out a furious scream, a sound so inhumanly loud it was hard to believe. Even so, the piercing sound couldn't escape the chamber, thanks to its special soundproofing system. In that moment, Gu's mind went completely blank. He felt like every second of his life was hell. He wanted to pass out, but he couldn't. He desperately wanted his parents, but that wish could never come true. Gu's life just kept repeating itself, with no answers in sight. When our protagonist opened his eyes, he was surrounded by a blinding white. His head was spinning so violently, he felt like he was going to throw up. He tried to move, but not a single muscle would obey his commands. Gu felt like a dead fish, just staring blankly downwards. He forced himself to shake his head and look at the wall in front of him. He used all his willpower to clear his mind. Suddenly, the wall 10 meters away zoomed right up to his eyes. Gu could now see every scattered paint droplet on the wall and even the tiny black spiders crawling on it. The moment he relaxed, the wall snapped back to its original place. His vision darkened, and then strange lines appeared, looking like the northern lights. It was then that Gu realized he could now see ultraviolet light. This time, 3 nerve bundles under Gojo's hand fired up all at once, expanding their detection range. He picked up sounds from miles away, a dozen noises bombarding him, until his eardrums nearly burst. For a second it felt like someone had slammed a hammer into his head, but the real struggle was just beginning for him. This was only the 3rd time Gojo's body had regenerated, but it was the first time the pain was enough to kill him. As he stepped out of the chamber, Gojo discovered his sight, hearing, and touch had all been amplified 4-fold. They now possessed a phenomenal awareness that normal people couldn't detect. His body had been pushed beyond its limits and become extremely sensitive. Depending on how he used his tools and techniques, his power could be 100 times more effective. Gojo's body had changed so much he even questioned if he was still human. Despite seeing Gojo's bizarre condition, his parents acted like nothing was wrong. They didn't even suggest he go to a hospital for a checkup. Rewinding back to the past, his first symptoms appeared in 5th grade, and the second transformation didn't happen until his sophomore year of high school. The first and only time he was taken to a hospital was when his grandfather discovered his condition. Gojo learned nothing about his illness from his parents. In that moment, our hero felt like he'd been thrown away. From then on, he began to seriously contemplate life and death. After that, Gojo's personality changed dramatically. He started fighting to survive. Whenever he had free time, he'd dive deep into medical research. When he couldn't find the clinical data he needed, he taught himself how to program and write code. Now Gojo's skills were so sharp, he could hack into any computer system in the country. Gojo had been tracking diseases characterized by rapid aging, but soon realized his condition wasn't aging. The cells inside him had subtly changed, becoming so powerful in every way they could be called super cells. Then one day, Gojo accidentally found a similar case file at a U.S. military hospital, one that might be related to his strange illness. However, he had barely read the beginning of the file when the document vanished without a trace. From this, he guessed there might be others with symptoms just like his. They had either recovered or been eliminated. That was the first time Gojo seriously considered why his parents never took him to a hospital. It wasn't just carelessness or irresponsibility on their part. There had to be another reason. The more he thought about it, the more terrified he became. He was scared that one day he would no longer be a normal human. The light of this world was starting to dim in his eyes. Right now, all Gojo could do was stay conscious. That was also what his mother had told him, and he chose to follow her words, because after one episode, Gojo saw the look of agony on his mother's face. At this point, Gojo believed he hadn't been abandoned like he once thought. The guy had to endure more shedding as the aging and regeneration process continued. Right now, Gojo could only endure the torturous pain until it subsided. He was currently on the phone with Yuna. When she found out he missed school because he was sick, she was incredibly worried. Gojo played it off, saying his health wasn't good enough for school yet. Hearing this, Yuna urged him to go to the hospital for a checkup and get a doctor's note for his absence. Getting this much attention from the class president felt a little awkward for Gojo. Even so, a small spark of joy appeared deep in his heart. As for the hospital, he decided he wasn't going. Instead, he'd fake a medical certificate by hacking the hospital's system. Just then, a sudden wave of pain hit him. It made Gojo lose control in an instant. This time, the changes in his body felt like a fatal blow to our hero. It felt like his cells were staging a rebellion. His lungs stopped breathing and stomach acid shot up into his mouth. His intestines went into overdrive, causing waste to leak out uncontrollably. Everything except his brain had shut down. In this moment, Gojo was reminding himself to focus, to push his senses to their absolute limit. If he failed, now the consequences would be irreversible. Our hero pushed past all his limits, measuring them precisely because after the surgery, Gojo realized his body was like an ocean of stem cells, unlocking all sorts of special abilities. As he hit the timer on his phone, he realized that horrible experience had only lasted an hour. Gojo had finally overcome the body regeneration phase, and now he no longer had to worry about death. But this is when the body is at its weakest. His nervous system and his will are completely out of sync. Because Guo has to slowly adapt to his body, he can't rest right now. All our hero can do is lie motionless on the ground, allowing the cells within him to transform infinitely. After a while, Guo's condition begins to stabilize. The moment he sits up, he can feel every joint in his body scream in agony. Dust and dried blood fall from his tangled hair, along with strands that had already shed. By now, most of his hair has faded to a pale color. Still weak and reeling from the pain, a thought comes to Guo that makes him smile. His mother. Even though she has no idea what he's been through, she's always been there, encouraging him to stay strong. Guo musters what little strength he has and walks to his desk, managing only 5 steps. But he's breathing like he just ran a 10-kilometer marathon. At this point, Guo has no clue how long he can endure this pain. The body's regeneration is such a terrifying cycle that Guo can no longer tell the difference between life and death. No medical theory in existence can explain these phenomena. After enduring the pain a while longer, it's now 6 a.m. and Guo wakes up in the bathtub. The liquid he's soaking in is a chemical solution of a specific concentration. It's a full-body coating that temporarily strengthens the skin and other tissues. Though weak after completing the regeneration, Guo now possesses a flawless, perfect body. It feels a little alien, but Guo is satisfied with this new coating on his body. Still sensing the faint stench of decaying cells, Guo tries using other fragrances to mask the disgusting odor. It's a perfume made from countless chemicals to neutralize his body odor. He remembers his last episode landed him in the hospital. During those 6 months, Guo's strength held out until the 7th month. This time, he's genuinely curious how many months he'll last. Based on past regenerations, he can tell the recovery cycle is gradually shortening. But having to spray that foul chemical stench 3 times a day is really getting on his nerves. Luckily, this regeneration went exactly as he'd hoped. All Guo needs to do now is continue the process of stabilization and aging. On top of that, he'll continue to avoid all human contact to focus on the process. He remembers that in those moments of absolute agony, Guo constantly prayed he could escape this dark hell. But it was always useless. The only thing left inside him is an unyielding will, a desire to become the creator of humankind. A god possessing special abilities that no one else in the universe has. Because with each metamorphosis, he could feel a connection to the fundamental essence of all things. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Manhwa is discussing stock investments with a colleague. After his colleague's pitch, Manhwa firmly refuses to invest. Hearing this, the colleague doubles down, guaranteeing the income and profits from the stock. Then, to add some credibility, he flashes the brand new watch he just bought. But Manhwa doesn't trust this guy one bit because he's pushing a stock called GA Mechanics. That stock used to have a ton of potential, but now it's completely bottomed out. GA Mechanics is known for its brilliant tech in polymer and biological materials, but due to sloppy management, they've posted huge losses for 3 years in a row. The company's owner is none other than Uche. Despite his colleague's sweet talk, Manhwa knows a deal this good would never just fall into his lap. Besides, he's got to cover his mom's hospital bills and save up for his own wedding. So, Manhwa can't risk listening to his colleague. Seeing that he's still dragging his feet, the impatient colleague scoffs at him, calling him petty. His words get more and more out of line, and Manhwa has had enough. The next second he stands up straight, looks his colleague dead in the eye and coldly flips him the bird. Then he just walks away from the whole annoying situation. Normally Manhwa would just brush it all off with a confident smile. But lately he's been incredibly irritable. Even the smallest things have been getting under his skin. Just as Manhwa reaches up to run a hand through his hair, he suddenly realizes something is terribly wrong. When he looks at the clump of hair in his hand, his eyes widen in speechless terror. Just because of a few fallen hairs, Manhwa bolts from the office and races home. At lightning speed, he rips off all his clothes. A second later, he's curled up in a ball on the chair. Right now, Manhwa feels lucky he recognized his illness in time. Just as the first wave of pain hits. Few people know that back in college, Manhwa had to take a year off because of this wretched disease. Part of his arm and leg were paralyzed, and even now he still doesn't feel right. Even the hospital said 95% of the nerves controlling his muscles were damaged, making recovery impossible. Thanks to that, Gu was exempted from military service. The doctors thought it was a virus, but Gu knew better. Too many things just didn't add up. Not wanting to be a lab rat, he stopped going to the hospital, and now endures the pain and the transformation happening inside him. This process was all too familiar to him. In an instant, he violently threw up all the fluid inside. At this moment, he was certain his illness had returned. Gu was ecstatic since it had been 5 years since his last flare-up. In his moment of wild excitement, the fluid started uncontrollably seeping out. After the transformation was over, Gu stared at his reflection, thrilled. Right now, his muscles were incredibly defined, his nerves practically reborn. In this state, he felt like he could lift an elephant. To him, this was a true gift. Feeling he needed to stabilize himself, Gu stared at his own reflection. Then he touched his finger to the nose on the mirror's surface. For a moment, a crescent-shaped ripple spread across the glass. A second later, the inside froze over, shrouded in mist. Not just his hands but his feet and other parts of his body could do the same. This mind-bending trick made him wonder if he should become a magician. Meanwhile, at BUSSIN High Liquangpu, his face, a swollen mess, was talking to Bak Jiandong. Despite him being younger, Bak Jiandong had no problem getting right up in his personal space. She tried to charm him, hoping he'd spill the beans about what went down at the warehouse. For a second, Li Guangpyo was mesmerized by her charm, but he snapped out of it and kept his mouth shut. Seeing how stubborn he was, Bak Jiandong dropped the act and went back to her usual bitchy self, calling him a coward. Everything that had happened lately was really getting on her nerves. Seeing Li Guangpyo just apologize over and over, she softened her tone, asking, "Who did this to you? I'll get justice for you." Her words proved she still had no clue what really happened in that warehouse. So Li Guangpyo was overjoyed. It looked like he was going to live after all. Bak Jiandong just couldn't figure out who could make a tough guy like Li Guangpyo cower like this. There was no one in this entire school who could stand up to her clique. But no matter how much she threatened him, Li Guangpiu wouldn't crack. Out of options, she asked about the camera. As soon as she said camera, he started trembling, stammering that he'd returned it. On the surface, Bak Jiandong pretended to believe him, but after a little digging, she found out a guy named Gu returned the camera to class 2 to 5. Hearing the name Gu, Bak Jiandong said it didn't ring a bell. The student beside her was reluctant to explain who he was. Seeing the hesitation, Bak Jiandong's patience snapped. She straight up slapped the student across the face. Still not satisfied, she just kept slapping her mercilessly. That was followed by a vicious kick. After roughing the student up, she turned to the others, asking if they knew anything about Gu. When no one responded, she exploded, ordering them to dig up every single detail on this guy by tomorrow. That night at Gu's house, C found her brother sitting silently in the living room. She brought him a soda and asked with concern what was on his mind. Gu told her he'd just had a painful episode, but that he was feeling a lot better now. Hearing this, C got curious and asked just how strong he was. Gu admitted that he didn't really know. For some reason, C always had a strange feeling about her brother's condition. Still, she saw his uniqueness as just that, different, not wrong. It's what their mother had always taught her. To C, no one in their family was strange at all. These thoughts were a secret that C kept locked away, never sharing them with anyone. Gu then asked where their mom was. C said she was on a business trip, and their dad had vanished right after checking in on him. She then asked her brother when he was planning to go back to school. Gu casually replied that he'd be back next week. Hearing that, C reminded him to be careful and not to getting himself into trouble at school. The next morning, Bak Ji-dong's crew dug up everything on Gu. Even his history of violence was brought to light. Bak Ji-dong found this information intriguing. She started asking everyone if they knew who Gu was, because now she really wanted to meet him. Meanwhile, in a narrow town alley, Dong-ah went to meet Cha Manel. Her friend looked like a complete wreck, almost unrecognizable. Even now, Cha Manel was clinging to the hope that Gu would see her cry for help. Seeing her friend staring at her phone, Dong-ah glimpsed the message to Gu. Instantly, the name Gu clicked in her head. She was about to ask more, but seeing her friend's condition, Dong-ah held her tongue. In Dong-ah's mind, Gu was a brilliant psycho. Her father Sogi couldn't stop talking about him whenever they spoke. At times, Dong-ah thought her dad was Gu's biggest fanboy from the way he hyped him up. Understanding her friend's desperation, Dong-ah promised she'd find help instead of just waiting for Gu to reply. She also warned her not to do anything foolish. At her friend's words of encouragement, Cha Manel just lowered her head in silence. After saying goodbye, Dong-ah thought about Minel's situation. The culprit, Bak Ji-dong, had vanished the moment Sogi got involved. After a few steps, Dong-ah felt something was off. She realized someone had been following her. Just as she reached for her phone to call her dad, she spotted a suspicious-looking woman up ahead. In that instant, Dong-ah sensed the approaching danger. Before she could even react, an arm shot out and grabbed her. She was quickly overpowered. As they drugged her, her phone was still connecting the call to Sogi. Meanwhile, the teacher Sogi was busy gathering all the documents related to the case. He'd had specialized training as a former special forces and intelligence officer, so he quickly gathered a mountain of evidence on Bak Ji-dong's crimes and took it straight to the principal. But unexpectedly, the vice principal, Majibon, saw the files and demanded to know why Seogi was meddling in this. He then made it clear he didn't believe a word of the evidence Sogi presented. Despite Sogi's explanations, the vice principal only cared about one thing: who else knew about this? Seogi's instincts as a former officer told him this wasn't so simple. He realized the vice principal standing right in front of him was also involved. Then the vice principal started playing mind games, claiming that if this got out, the principal himself and even Sogi would be in deep trouble. This was so serious they couldn't just sweep it under the rug. If word got out, he said, the parents would raise hell. Then, local politicians, the city council, everyone would get involved. It might even escalate to a full-blown police investigation. He even warned that Sogi's own family could become targets if this went public. Hearing these threats, Sogi was furious. He declared he wouldn't just stand by while his students were harmed and sold to nightclubs. Just as they were arguing, a call came in from his daughter. But caught up in the heated argument with the VP, he rejected Dong-ah's call. It was a decision he would come to regret deeply. Seogi pressed on, telling Majibon that thousands of kids were being beaten and forced to work in these clubs. But the shameless vice principal just argued that it helped the students earn money. This heartless remark made Seogi's blood boil. Instantly, he snatched the documents back from the vice principal's hands. As the VP tried to stop him, Seogi declared he was taking this to the police station himself. As he was leaving, he warned the VP that if the police did nothing, he'd go straight to the prosecutor's office. And if that didn't work, he'd go to the media. Failing that, he'd stage a one-man protest at the Blue House. By then, Magibon's career as vice principal would be over. After leaving the office, Seogi immediately tried calling Dong-ah back. At the same time, the VP was already on the phone, informing the organization behind him that Seogi was investigating their illegal operation. He couldn't afford to let anyone exploit his weakness. His own weakness. It's how he survives in this treacherous world. Meanwhile, after calling his daughter multiple times with no answer, a sense of dread washed over teacher Seogi. Right after leaving the principal's office, Seogi had no intention of going to the police. He knew the authorities in this neighborhood were all cut from the same cloth. While trying to call Dong-ah again, Seogi suddenly froze when he saw a new text. The kidnappers had used Ha Dong-ah's phone to send him a location. In that moment, he was kicking himself for not answering his daughter's call earlier. For them to go this far meant this was all planned. Dong-ah was in serious danger. Seogi knew he had just poked the hornet's nest. To keep his daughter safe, he headed straight for the kidnappers' meeting point. The moment he saw the car waiting, an old instinct kicked in. It felt just like his days on special ops in the counter-terrorism unit. Before walking straight into the lion's den, Seogi sent a quick email to Gio as a precaution. Then he marched forward, ready to face whatever came next. Unfortunately, the email Seokji sent to Gio was completely blank. Curious about what the teacher was trying to say, our protagonist used his hacking skills to recover the corrupted message. The moment he saw the contents, Gio's face darkened. He tried calling Seokgi, but there was no answer. Meanwhile, at a PC bang, Duet was in the middle of a game when our hero called. The second he realized it was Gio, Duet exploded. "You bastard, you finally remember I exist." Facing his best friend's outburst, Gio just gave a lazy excuse, saying he'd been sick the last few days. Then he cut right to the chase, asking Duet if he knew anything going on with teacher Seokgi at school. Duet thought for a second. A few days ago, the teacher was looking into the Cha Min-so incident, the student who tried to take her own life. Hearing this, Gio pressed him for more details. Seeing how serious he was, Duet decided to tell him everything he knew from the beginning. After Duet laid out all the facts, Gio finally put the pieces together. He had just cross-referenced the message from Cha Min-so with the one containing teacher Seokgi's personal account info. Gio immediately hacked into Seokgi's phone to get a live feed. As soon as it connected, he heard a man's mocking laughter and a faint growl in the distance. Our hero now suspected that the bullies involved, with Cha Min-so, were connected to a larger power, one tied to this guy named Park Dong. Seokgi's simple little puzzle for Gio was quickly cracked. Gio figured Seokgi must have found some dirt on them leading to this mess. He cursed his luck, since all this trouble was happening right when his body was unstable. Even though Seokgi was usually a total pain in the ass, Gio decided he had to help him. After all, he'd made a promise to himself to live like a savior and solve all of humanity's problems. After transforming, Gio gains monstrous strength and speed. The catch: the time he can use these powers is extremely limited. This means he always has to plan an escape route. More accurately, he has to calculate and predict the most efficient combat scenarios. To do that, Gio constantly trains in skills like marksmanship and throwing to be prepared for anything. Since time was short, Gio decided the first step was to get accurate intel on the situation. Immediately, he hacked into the telecom company's server to get teacher Seokji's location. He could pinpoint Seokji's location by tracking Dong-ah's phone. The signal pinged at a coffee shop near the park. But our hero deduced this was likely a fake location set up by Park Dong's crew. The real spot was the park up on the hill. With that, Gio geared up like Agent 007 and set off to rescue his teacher. Before heading out, he made sure to prepare a little gift for his homeroom teacher. Then our hero went outside to grab a taxi. By now it had been 30 minutes since Gio received Seokji's SOS message. Meanwhile, at a construction site behind Triangle Park, the car carrying Seokji pulled into a narrow alley and forced him out. Fearing he might fight back, they immediately put a knife to his throat. The thugs quickly brought Seokji to their boss. The moment he saw the leader, Seokji frantically demanded to know where Dong-ah was. Seokji didn't even give the boss a chance to speak. Right now, all he cared about was his daughter's safety. Seeing his frantic state, the leader turned to his underling and asked who Dong-ah was. He learned from his man that she was the schoolgirl they'd snatched that afternoon. The leader's smug attitude made Seokji's blood boil. In that moment, he wanted nothing more than to tear the man in front of him, limb from limb. The moment he saw the thug's professional defensive formation, Mr. Seokji knew he'd stumbled upon a major organization. Without knowing the full situation, he couldn't act rashly and endanger Dong-ah. So facing the boss, Seokji demanded to see his daughter first. Seeing Seokji arrive unprepared, despite being a former Special Forces officer, the boss was intrigued. He immediately ordered his men to take care of him, and while Sok-ji was being beaten, the boss searched his things. He went through the documents Sok-ji had collected, but realizing something was off, he ordered his men to stop. Turns out the real evidence wasn't in the folder. Mr. Sok-ji had hidden the originals somewhere else. Those documents were the key to exposing their entire illegal operation. At this point, Sok-ji started mocking the boss for being stupid enough to fall for the fake documents. Realizing he'd been played, the boss kicked Sok-ji square in the face. He then restrained the teacher, threatening him for the originals, but Sok-ji, unfazed, just demanded to see Dong-ah first. Everything else could wait. The boss, though reluctant, ordered his men to bring Dong-ah. He would let Sok-ji see Dong-ah, just not in the way he hoped. Meanwhile, Dong-ah was being held elsewhere. She was trapped in a cargo truck, hands tied to a seat and legs bound, completely immobilized. On top of that, they'd injected her with some mysterious drug, leaving her mind foggy and disoriented. In an instant, pure terror washed over Dong-ah. Piecing together the conversation she'd overheard, she guessed that Park Gyo-dong was the one pulling the strings. Suddenly, a noise from outside startled her. The door flew open. 2 men in black stepped inside and approached her. At that very moment, Dong-ah heard her father's voice. The second she heard his voice, all her fear vanished. Just as the 2 men grabbed her, Gio arrived on the scene. After confirming the address and grabbing some weapons, he confidently made his way inside. Entering the factory area, Gio noticed guards posted at every corner, looking extremely professional. Our hero knew he was up against a serious crew. He couldn't use his full power right now, but he was still confident he could handle this. He decided to head for the back of the site. Behind the main building was a 4-story complex. Gio managed to get inside on the first floor. He then used the pipes to climb up to the other floors. This took a lot of strength. Gio could feel the strain in his hands, but after a moment, he finally reached the top 4th floor. To get in, Gio had to get through the top floor window. But this wasn't glass. It was thick plastic, so Gio pulled out a knife he'd prepared. This was no ordinary knife. It had a modified heating filament that could melt right through plastic. As soon as he cut a hole, he pressed his ear against it, listening for any sounds inside. Hearing nothing, Gio took a deep breath and heightened his senses. Instantly, a piercing noise hit his eardrums. He had to use his power to filter out the static. Then he could clearly hear the men talking about Sok-yi, but pushing his senses this far was draining his energy. Hearing their brutal plans for Sok-ji and his daughter Gio's anger boiled over. After listening in, Gio got the gist of the situation. He decided to ditch his plan and just bust in through the window. He'd create a massive distraction. Right now, Mr. Sok-ji was being beaten to a pulp by the boss. His eyes burned with the same murderous intent he had when eliminating targets back in the army. Suddenly a figure appeared. Seeing his daughter was safe, Sok-ji ignored everything and gave her a wide, reassuring smile. Pretending he was perfectly fine, this whole scene just pissed the boss off. He slammed the teacher's head to the ground with his foot. Then he turned to Dong-ah, sarcastically praising her for being so smart. After all, she was the reason her father was in this mess. He was now using Dong-ah as a hostage, demanding the original evidence from Sok-gi as she looked on in terror. Seeing Dong-a's fear, Sok-gi managed a gentle smile, which instantly seemed to give her strength. Suddenly, a noise rang out, and the thugs immediately rushed to check its source. Meanwhile, Gu had already broken the window. Without a second thought, he slipped into the factory. He stuck the landing like Spider-Man, but the force of it left his palm completely numb. Just as the thugs arrived, Gu quickly ducked into a corner to hide. While they were busy searching for the intruder, Gu watched everything unfold from above. Seeing Mr. Sok-gi and his daughter Dong-a in such a pathetic state, Gu felt a pang of pity. Suddenly, Mr. Sok-gi's gaze shot up to where Gu was hiding. The look was so intense, Gu felt their eyes lock. Because he'd overexerted himself, enhancing his senses, our hero had lost all his special powers. Now Gu could only rely on his calculations to save them. In a flash, a glint appeared in Gu's eyes. He made his move. Using a coin he'd prepared, he flicked it with incredible force towards the thugs. The force created a small shockwave. One of the thugs felt it and glanced toward the wall. He couldn't believe his eyes as he saw the coin embedded effortlessly into the solid concrete. The thugs were immediately on high alert, but just then, Gu's physical condition took a turn. He was feeling the strain of exhaustion, and the dim light and chaotic movements were making his senses go haywire. In his current state, Gu couldn't risk a direct confrontation with these guys. So, our hero decided he'd use coins as weapons to pick them off one by one. They tightened their formation, scanning every direction, but still couldn't pinpoint his location. Coins kept flying erratically out of the darkness, making them increasingly agitated. Meanwhile, their leader was trying to contact his organization to arrange for an exit. After a moment he noticed Mr. Sogi, who despite being beaten to a pulp was trying to act tough. He started taunting him, saying he was at death's door, yet still wore that defiant look. In response, Mr. Sogi just gave the leader a cold stare. That stare sent a shiver down the leader's spine. As he moved to strike again, Mr. Sogi quickly grabbed his leg. At that moment, he decided the leader wasn't leaving this place in one piece. Meanwhile, Gu was optimizing his every move, making sure not to make a single sound. Every part of his body was precisely calibrated and trained. That's why his coin throws packed such a punch. Seeing the thugs thrown into chaos by his coin attacks, Gu seized his chance to strike. He flicked a coin right next to a thug, as if to signal that death was near. By now, Gu was a master at this. While the thugs were distracted, he took one of them out. Seeing their buddy drop, the others rushed over, only to find the horrific sight of a coin embedded deep in his skull. The scene descended into absolute chaos, thanks to all the coins Gu had unleashed. When the main lights died, the thugs gathered in the brightest spot left. This was Gu's cue to spring his trap. After so many throws, Gu's skill had reached a new level, with a miss rate of 0.01%. Coins shot by Gu flew chaotically through the air. Some thugs died instantly, as coins tore through them. One got a coin in his throat, while another writhed in agony, his nose shattered by a direct hit. An even unluckier guy got 101 coins stuck in his windpipe. It was an absolutely gruesome scene. Witnessing this horror show, the remaining thugs screamed and made a break for the exit. Just as one reached the doorknob, Gu logged him out permanently, with a coin straight to the head. One by one, anyone who tried to escape was taken down. In a flash, no one dared to even move. This spectacle of fear and despair was making Gu, watching from above, feel absolutely ecstatic. The thugs were now just fish in a barrel, waiting for Gu to pick them off at will. Seeing no escape, a survivor yelled out, "You coward! Show your damn face if you've got the guts!" Instantly, his fate was sealed. Of all the thugs, this guy was probably the unluckiest, as a coin shot straight through his crotch. All the while, Mr. Sogi clung tightly to the leader's ankle, who now felt a primal wave of danger wash over him. The pressure on his ankle from Mr. Sogi felt like it was caught in a steel vice. Mr. Sogi's eyes were filled with hatred. The gang leader struggled to break free, but it was completely useless. His leg was held so tight, he couldn't even stand up. Suddenly, the leader sensed something was terribly wrong. Just as he tried to escape, Mr. Sogi had a special gift waiting for him. In an instant, the leader's ankle shattered like a cookie, with Sogi as the baker. He could feel every bone in his leg had been crushed to dust. The leader thrashed wildly, trying to escape death, terrified of what this madman would do next. Meanwhile, Dong-a watched in shock. She couldn't understand why the other thugs were suddenly running for their lives as if fleeing a monster. A moment later, the fleeing thugs dropped dead coins piercing through their skulls. Dong-a stared. Seeing this, she looked toward where the coins came from, but she couldn't see anything clearly. Still, she had a strange feeling about what was happening. Suddenly, the leader's blood-curdling scream drew her attention. She saw her father frantically strangling the man. Terrified, Dong-a prayed silently, "Please, Dad, don't do this." All she wanted was a simple life with him, not for him to return to that terrifying person he used to be. The more she saw her father's rage, the more she hated Park Gyudong for causing all of this. Just then, another thug walked in, clueless, and saw the bizarre scene. He asked what the hell was going on. The others had no time to explain, they just screamed at him to call for backup immediately. The leader was now on the verge of death at Seogi's hands. He desperately begged for his life, but facing the man who tried to harm his daughter, how could Sogi possibly let him go? The leader clasped his hands, pleading, "Please spare me, teacher, I'm begging you." But as soon as the words left his mouth, he was met with a hard slap from Sogi. At that moment, Sogi wasn't a teacher anymore. He had reverted to his true identity, a special forces officer. Mr. Sogi returned every single slap the leader had given him earlier. He made it clear that it was too late for apologies, because he was going to kill every last one of them. Everyone here, and that old geezer, the vice principal too. Seogi offered the leader a chance to live, but it was only a temporary one, because he would hunt him down anytime, anywhere, until he had chewed his very last bone. After confirming his daughter was unharmed, Sogi's tension finally eased, though he really wanted to untie Dong-a, but she couldn't move easily, so Seogi had to think about his next move. Suddenly, a tall figure appeared behind Dong-a, slowly approaching her. The moment a hand touched her shoulder, Dong-a's heart skipped a beat. She could only let the person behind her push her forward. Then Dong-a smelled a strong perfume. In just a moment, the light in her eyes faded, and she entered an endless darkness. Just as she thought she was being taken hostage again, the person behind her placed something in her hand. 2 cell phones. The mysterious person in black gave her the devices with some hidden meaning. They seemed to imply, "I hope you're as smart as I expect you to be." A second later, Dong-ah felt a faint breeze, as the scent of the person in black faded away. Even though she tried to look back, the figure was already gone. It was then Dong-ah realized the person who untied her was the one who took down all the thugs. In her hands were 2 phones, one hers and one belonging to someone else. Both were on and still recording. This was solid proof of everything that just happened. Mr. Seogi had witnessed the entire rescue himself. Although Gu's disguise was meticulous with a soldier's keen eye, Mr. Seogi still recognized the person in black as his own student. He couldn't believe that Gu had found this place from just one simple text message. At that moment, Seogi was genuinely impressed with the kid. After being freed, Dong-ah rushed to her father to stop him from killing the man. Understanding his daughter's fear, Seogi decided to spare the leader's life. But just as the two of them stood up, a figure appeared at the door. It was a firefighter. They were here because they'd received a report about a mad dog causing a disturbance. Hearing this, Seogi knew exactly who was behind the call. Instantly, all the admiration he just had for Gu vanished. In a flash, fire trucks, an ambulance and a fire truck arrived at the scene.